Hey folks, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy's 10.
Today we ask the question, is this common racial ability in Dungeons & Dragons the bane of DMs everywhere? Start this video by thanking our sponsor, Easy Roller Dice. Whether it's your first set of dice, your 100th set of dice, or your 1 millionth set of dice, Easy Roller Dice for all your dice rolling needs. Down in the description, you can find a one-time coupon code for a whopping 20% off, as well as a link, easyrollerdice.com/nerdarchy, to get your own set of Easy Roller Dice.
All right, so today we're talking about a common ability that many people on the internet have complained about. This is ruining their game.
Yeah, on the we've seen it on Reddit, we've seen it on Twitter. It's something that most races get. I think there's only like 3 in the PHP that don't get it. Halflings don't get it, Dragonborn don't get it, and humans don't get it. I think everybody else gets dark vision.
That's right.
And, so there's GMs saying that it ruins their game, the surprise, the suspense. They don't need torches or lanterns or the light spell. And, so that got us thinking and got us really talking. Intern Jake actually brought up some really interesting ideas when it comes to dark vision. And also he's like a military guy. He's been like in the military for like a decade or something. And he's used night vision goggles and things like that. And so he had some really interesting points to bring up. So one of the things about using dark vision, and I'm guilty of this as well, is that's not using it as a narrative tool. The idea that we're not really using it properly a lot of times. When I say we, I mean us. I don't know what you're doing in your game. You can let us know down in the comments below if you're doing something different. But, a lot of times we just kind of ignore it. It's like, oh, you can see or you can't see. But dark vision changes the world around you in a very big way. You no longer see things in colors, but you see things in shades of black and whites. And for the most part, like, whatever, it's not really a big deal, I've seen black and white art. It looks okay. You can tell everything that's going on. But you're going to miss gradations with doing that. And, there's one big area where your other senses are really going to have to come into play, or you could get into trouble. Or what if you don't have access to some of those other senses while you're using dark vision? In my game, we introduced troglodytes and a drug evolved around them, and also the people that were actually using the troglodytes and working with them came up with a alchemical substance that almost like a Vaseline. They would rub it on their top lip under their nose,
and then they can't smell.
Which is great when you're working around troglodytes. It's not so great though when you're walking through a dark cave with no lights. You can't smell anything. And, in front of you, there's a dark liquid. It could just be water, right? It's probably just water. But what if it's not? What if it's something like acid, which would give you a warning, that you couldn't see, but you could smell.
If you could taste, through smell, that acidity, that acrid odor, you'd be like, oh, well, all right, that's clearly not water. But if you're using this chemical, then that element, that sense, has been removed from your repertoire, and now you're relying solely on sight, solely on touch. And when you start touching things that burn, that dissolve, it's bad news.
Exactly. What if it's lava, right? And you're a creature that is resistant to fire. Do you register the heat or no, or do you not sense it? So it brings up questions like that. Another area where we kind of talked about it. What about writing, like chalk on a wall? It's going to be harder to see. If you had a torch, you might be like, oh, it might just jump right out at you. But because you don't have as much gradation in things, and you're using dark vision, it might blend in. As a DM, I might justify going, you know what, this is going to be like a DC 10 perception check to notice this, or 11 or 12 maybe, depending on how close it is, because it kind of blends in, without that gradations.
But, we're also looking at this, totally one-sided. We're living and playing in this fantasy world where dark vision is a common ability. Therefore, creatures will have evolved to blend in and deal with those that can see in the dark. let's face it, the Underdark, the Beneath, whatever you want to call it in your world, it's a lightless world all the time. Therefore, there's going to be things that are developed around it, creatures' abilities, but as also things that humanoids, creatures, people might wind up doing. Well, I'm going to write on the wall to give a sigil as a warning. Well, perhaps it's only available or only visible in the dark vision spectrum, and you shine light on it and it doesn't appear. So when you have travelers, adventurers that are always walking with a torch, they're going to miss out on them. They could be warnings. They could be, territorial markings. You can use both sides of dark vision as a narrative tool.
That's an excellent point. And also, dark vision doesn't eliminate stealth. So I don't understand why people were having such a hard time with dark vision as far as like ruining the mood. And let's be clear, like dark vision is not as good as actual light. If you refer to the rules for dark vision and obscurement, like you'll find out that you don't see as well. You have disadvantage on search checks or perception checks in dim light.
And if you're using dark vision, you're going to have issues. So is it a -5 to your passive perception if you're not using regular light?
So there's three areas that you really, to understand dark vision, you have to check out, and that is dark vision, dim light, and lightly obscured. And we're going to do that right now.
All right. So lightly obscured, such as dim light, patchy fog, or moderate foliage, creatures have disadvantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight. Dim light, also called shadows, creates a lightly obscured area. An area of dim light is usually a boundary between a source of bright light, such as a torch, and surrounding darkness. The soft light of twilight and dawn also count as dim light. A particularly brilliant full moon might bathe the land in dim light. And then dark vision. Many creatures of the world of D&D, especially those that dwell underground, have dark vision. Within a specified range, a creature with dark vision can see in darkness as if the darkness were dim light. So areas of darkness are only lightly obscured as far as that creature is concerned. However, the creature can't discern color in darkness, only in shades of gray. So you're going to be at disadvantage if you're using your dark vision as opposed to your regular vision. That in and of itself, sets you back. I know many DMs take dark vision as like a static -5 to your passive if they're trying to rely on that versus an actual rolled check.
Yeah. So, and like if you think about races that work underground, when they're doing fine detailed work, chances are they kind of have an area where it's well lit so that they can work and function better. Especially like I kind of think of dwarves and gnomes who are maybe chiseling and etching and doing like fancy designs where they work. They're going to want to see to be able to do it, to get the fine details, to get the gradation that you're not going to get with dark vision. Although I really like the idea, like you said, of certain races using pigmentation and things that is only picked up on the dark vision spectrum. So people using light, outsiders essentially, would more than likely not notice it.
And I would lean that heavily towards a drow practice because
they're assholes.
I wasn't going to go there. I was going to go with...
Am I wrong? In the comments, what do you think? Drows are naturally a-holes or what?
I was looking more like they're assassins, they're saboteurs, they're those that are going to operate more likely on stealth than say Duragar or other denizens of the Underdark, and therefore this might.
Well, I wouldn't lump Dugar in there. They're pretty secretive and suspicious.
Right, but I don't see Duragar as stealthy. Like if they want to be,
no, they're not stealthy.
They just go invisible. So to me, the stealth angle of things is where I'm seeing these things coming in, and that's why I would lump it to Drow more than anything else. But anybody could wind up using this type of thing, especially if it's something you want to create in your world. Like, oh, well, something visible only on the dark vision spectrum. That's kind of cool. How can I use it? What would I do with it?
And that's also a great idea too, because you could use that to build tension when they're seeing these markings at kind of like regular intervals that they're seeing with their dark vision and they don't know what they are, they don't know what it's made of. Like these are ways to use to use dark vision as a tool to like further the narrative and create interesting things. Whereas a GM where you're like, oh man, this is just killing the mood because everyone just goes around in dark and I can't make it creepy and spooky, but you can by using these sigils and stuff. And then, it doesn't eliminate stealth. Creatures with blind sense or blind sight are still going to have an easier time navigating these dark places than the folks with dark vision. Many of the races that are underground, Snarfneblin, Drow, Duergar, they have superior dark vision, so they can actually see you before you get to see them. And then, if you then have some of your party members that don't have dark vision, they're going to need something.
Right. So now you can use this narrative tool from the other side, as Dave says. Like you could see this puddle of liquid, you might not know what it is, but you could do that with anything. If you're just seeing these gradations of gray, this variegated color, and not seeing light, oh well, you might not know that the stone ahead of you is actually weaker than what you've been walking on. The only way to know is that, oh well, if I had a light source, I would know that stone isn't going to support weight. It's more fragile. It's more brittle. So you can use these things, fairly regularly, and have that be a challenge that your players will need to overcome, and they need to decide, well, if I'm only using dark vision, I might walk into a number of traps that I wouldn't be able to see, or that I would only be able to see if I had light.
Well, and other things too. Maybe spider webs are harder to see with dark vision because you only see in grays. Maybe it tends to blend right in with whatever else is going on. Where if you had a torch, like the torchlight would reflect off the spider silk. So there's things like that. We mentioned stealth, false appearance. Doesn't matter if you have dark vision or not. Then like we said, dark vision is actually inferior to actually having a light source. Like a bullseye lantern with a continual light spell, and it is way better. You get to see out to 60 feet. You can control the light source, turn it on and off, and then you get another 60 feet of dim light after that. So that's 120 feet. That means you can literally see as good as a drow. You got the same range.
Right. And that's going to be important if you're traversing, the places that they live. Because if they see you before you see them, they have the ability to either set the ambush, get away, or, just straight up attack, and they get the surprise round on you, and that's never a good thing.
Well, I mean, you're if you're walking around with a light source, you're kind of visible. But at least you have your eyes at any rate, and you're the characters that you have in your party that are good at spotting ambushes. If the light is there, they have a better chance of spotting the ambush than if it wasn't. I mean, chances are, if you're traipsing through the Underdark, Drow are going to find you before you find them, no matter what. But at least with that extra light, maybe you have like 60 feet worth of, you have a better chance, because if you have someone that's really perceptive in your party, like your rogue, who maybe they're hanging out in that 60 feet of dim light and they're hiding too, then maybe the party doesn't get the drop on the drow, but that character might. So it's at least something.
Absolutely. And I mean, you've got the the whole spectrum of options when it comes to light, between a lantern, a torch, and the bullseye, and that's really where you really want to go. But not everybody has the option of going right to that one.
Right. Well, and while we're talking about dungeons and Beneath and Underdark and that kind of stuff, we have some great dungeon dressings over on Nerdarchy, the store. Whether you're looking for an altar, stalactites, or just tentacles, we've got what you need. There's going to be a link in the description where you can check that out.
So, and the other thing you want to make sure you're aware of is that dark sight isn't going to negate stealth. It's not going to negate the things that have the natural camouflage.
Well, you know what? With all that in mind that we kind of gone over, as the GM, know what you might want to do? Like, you might want to be like, oh, well, what does this area look lit up? And then have your own sidebar for dark vision. Be like, hey, what is this area like for characters that have dark vision that are seeing it all in grays? are things going to be different for them? Or is it going to be harder for them to discern certain things over others? Like maybe the room changing what the walls are made of. If it still looks kind of the same, they may not know that it's changed.
Right.
Yeah, it's still to them, it's just the stone walls that they were used to. Well, now it's changed because it's wood or made of mushroom or something, but it's textured in a way that's similar to the stone, but clearly it's not natural. Right. So, but the biggest difference would be if you could actually see it and see the differences in colors. Something you just don't get the same kind of feel. And and the other thing too is like they're talking about shades of gray more so than black and white. Right. So that's even different.
That is true.
The question is, how do you guys work it in your game? What do you do with dark vision? Do you ignore it and just like it's just like seeing everywhere else? Or do you make it special and turn it into a narrative tool for your game? We got a place where we can talk about it. That's down in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
After you're done doing that, don't forget to check out the description and check out our sponsor, Easy Roller Dice, and that promo code.
So until next time, stay nerdy.